Hello, hello, my favorite people. Welcome to week 5. Woohoo! That means that's the last week of our emergency learning plan. So exciting. This week we're going to be talking about area and perimeter of rectangles, triangles, and squares. This should actually be way easier than circumference and area of a circle. We're going to be still working with that formula sheet, but just right up here with triangles, squares, and then rectangles. Some of this should be a little bit of a fifth grade review, but I'm going to show you some tricks in the Desmos calculator on how to calculate area and perimeter. We'll talk about some keywords with word problems, and then you'll be good to go. So welcome to week 5. Let's dive in and do this thing. All right, well, first let's talk about area and perimeter. Remember, perimeter, rim, right? The rim of a basketball is the stuff around, is the distance around the shape, right? So the perimeter, the P, is the distance around the shape, whether it be a rectangle, a triangle, or a square. Around the shape is the perimeter. The stuff inside the shape is then the area, right? So area inside, how much space the object takes up. Perimeter outside, the distance around a shape. So we definitely have to know those things before we begin. Remember, you do not have to memorize these formulas. They will always be available to you with the formula sheet. So don't feel like you have to memorize these before, you kind of start working. So let's actually solve some things. Right, so this first one up here says, let's find the perimeter. Anytime you're dealing with formulas, you want to write the formula down. So if I look back up at the top, I find the shape. Well, this is a rectangle, so I go to the rectangle. And it says P equals 2, that's an L, kind of cursive L, plus 2W, right? So 2 length plus 2 width. So there's a couple ways you could do this. You can just straight up use that formula and plug in what you know. Length is kind of like side to side. Width is that up and down kind of scenario. So length would be 15 for this shape. Width would be 8. We also, if you're kind of confused about the formula, we know that if this side is 15, that this side is 15, right? Because opposite sides are congruent. And if this side is 8, then this side is 8. So easy way to find perimeter, you just add. So you would do 15 plus 8 plus 15 plus 8, and we would make it all the way around. But let's actually use the formula 2L plus 2W. So if I kind of shrink this over here, let's make that smaller so we can see it, and bring up that handy dandy Desmos calculator. Remember the trick I showed you last week that you can really just type in the formula. So I could say 2L plus 2W, right? So there's my formula for perimeter. Now I just plug in what I know into the computer, right? I'm going to say, okay, well, that L is 15. So I'll come over here. L equals 15. And then I'll say that W is 8. W equals 8. And then boom, right there on that top line, it does it for me. So the perimeter is 46 centimeters, right? Remember that unit of measurement. If I'm measuring in centimeters, I write the answer in centimeters. I could check that by just kind of doing it maybe the old-fashioned way, and I could just do 15 plus 8 plus 15 plus 8. If we just kind of traveled around, and look, it's still 46. So it doesn't matter if you use the actual formula, which is kind of recommended, or you kind of keep it old school and just do side plus side plus side plus side. You'll still be able to find the perimeter, that outside of the shape. Boom. We're brilliant. Let's move on to area of a rectangle. So here I have the area. I want to know what the area is of the rectangle. If I look up at the top, I know that area for a rectangle is length times width, so LW. Again, in my Desmos calculator, I could just type that in, LW, right? And then I can tell my calculator, okay, length is 15, width is 8, using that equal sign, and boom, right up here, area equals 120 centimeters squared. Remember, you're going to square the unit of measurement, not the actual answer, right? Because centimeters times centimeters is centimeters squared. So 15 centimeters times 8 centimeters is 120 centimeters squared. Remember, perimeter, just the unit, area, units squared. Pretty simple stuff, right? Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. You don't have to memorize the formula. You just use that formula sheet, plug in the formula into the Desmos, plug in what you know, and boom, you're done. Let's move on to a square. All right, so when we're dealing with a square, again, if you looked up at the formula sheet, I'm gonna get you guys a little car stick and make you scroll up to the top. All right, if you look up to the top at this lovely formula sheet, right? So right here in the middle, I have the square. So it says perimeter is 4s, right? We know about a square that all four sides are the same. So instead of doing side plus side plus side plus side, since they're all the same, we just do 4 times the length of the side. And area is s squared, right? So let's go back down to our square. Boom, here it is. And let's find area and perimeter. Again, perimeter, the formula is 4s. So I can come over to my Desmos, type in 4s, and then tell my Desmos calculator s equals 8. And we know that the perimeter equals 32. Let's call these meters. 32 meters, right? Let's say the square is in meters. Who knows, right? So 4 times 8, right? We probably didn't even need the calculator for that one. So the area then is the length of the side squared, or s squared. So if I could just come over, I can erase this original formula and then just type in s and then use this squared button to get that little 2 at the top. And s squared is 64. Remember, squared means you're doing 8 times 8, not 8 times 2, 8 times 8, which is 64. And then we write our unit of measurement, meters squared. I mean, come on, guys. How easy can this be? It's so wonderful. This is like my favorite because everyone is always super successful with area and perimeter. So the most complicated of them all, the triangle, not bad. So we don't have a formula for the top for perimeter of a triangle. It's really just because we just add the 3 sides together. There's no really, it's just side 1 plus side 2 plus side 3. So if we are finding perimeter, we would take 10 plus 10 plus 12, right? The exterior measurements for the sides. So 10 plus 10 plus 12, the perimeter would then be 32, right? So we could do that in the calculator or in our minds. But we're really going to talk more about area of a triangle. So the formula for area is 1/2 base times height. So we have to figure out this base height scenario. If I look at this first triangle, there's 4 measurements. I have 3 on the outside and 1 on the inside. But if you get a triangle like this, okay, the base and the height are what we call perpendicular. That's the sign for perpendicular right there. But really it just means that they form a 90-degree angle. So if I look at this interior measurement, this 8 inches, it forms a 90-degree angle with this bottom line, the base, right? So the base is not always going to be on the bottom. I could flip that, and 8 and 12 would still be the measurements that I want. But you just have to remember that the height and base are perpendicular. So they're going to form a 90-degree angle. So when I'm using my formula, I go over to my Desmos. I could even type in A equals, and I'm going to do 1/2, get out of the fraction, BH. Okay? Now, my base is the outside line that forms that 90-degree angle with the height. So my base is 12. I'm going to come over here. B equals 12. And then my height, if they give me an interior number, it's almost always the height. So the height is this 8 inches right here. So height equals 8. So boom, the area of this top one, remember, is 48 inches squared. Remember, we're going to square the units because we're doing inches times inches, which is inches squared. So 48 inches squared. So 1/2 base times height. you cannot forget the 1/2, right? You can write it as 0.5 in your calculator, or you can literally type in 1/2, and that will give you that 1/2, right? 1/2, or you can do 1 divided by 2. Either of those will give you that fraction for 1/2. So 1/2 base times height. If I come down to the second triangle down here, right, I have just 2 numbers. I have an exterior number and the interior number. I'm looking for that 90-degree angle to find the base and then the height. Oops, equals. All right, so boom. I can just come back over. I can leave my formula in there and I can just change. Okay, for this triangle, the base is 10 and the height is 4. So the area of this triangle is 20 inches squared, right? So easy peasy. Find the formula, type it into the Desmos calculator, plug in what you know, and it'll solve for what we don't. So easy. I love it so much. So the last thing we're really going to focus on is what if we have like word problems, right? We want to identify keywords that mean area or perimeter. A lot of the times, because the formulas are so easy for you guys, they'll give you word problems to solve. So remember, area is the inside of the shape. So if you're doing something on the inside, if you're filling something, if you're covering something, obviously if they say the word area, that would lead you to believe area. If they say something like what units squared, that would let you know that it's area. So area, again, the inside, you're filling it, you're covering it. You want to do the inside of something. So that would lead you to believe that that word problem is about area. For perimeter, you're talking about like trim, around. If you're going to frame something, if you're going to put a fence around something, right? So if you're going around a shape, right, a border, trim, frame, fence, all of those would be just perimeter. And obviously if it says just the unit, so how many centimeters, how many meters, how many miles, stuff like that. If it doesn't have the units squared, if it's just the unit, that will lead you to believe that it is perimeter. So just remember what those words mean, right? Perimeter, around a shape, area, inside a shape. So now what do we do? So just make sure that you go in and finish the lesson slide. There's one more video. Make sure you kind of read over the notes, do the quizzes. Once you're done with slide 1, you're going to complete that interactive slide. So I think it's just 4 questions, 4 word problems for you to do. Then you're going to get to that choice board. Please remember to use that circle tool and circle your choice so that way I know what to look for. Complete your choice. Don't just turn in a blank document. And then post a shareable link to your choice on that final slide. If you do the little checkup or quiz, make sure you just type in your score. Then when you're done, submit your assignment. Once you're submitted, if you've done all 5 and you're marked off for all 5, it is party time because that means you are 100% done with math, which is so crazy to think about. So remember, all 5 assignments need to be finished and submitted. I'll check you off and then party time. Enjoy your summer. It was a pleasure teaching you. I've missed you this last quarter and a half. It has not been the same teaching online, but just so you know, I will always love you and miss you so much. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy your summer. Message me with any questions, comments, concerns, or just stop by and say hi. But I love you. See you later.